I'm going to lead this one off. It's get ready for a bad Jerry Seinfeld impersonation. What's the deal? Hi, I'm Russ.
And I'm Danny.
And this is the Memory Makers Podcast,
The show that helps you create amazing customer experiences and make more memories.
Memory Makers Podcast. Danny, if you can't tell me what game show theme song that is, I'm gonna be super mad.
It sounds like you were doing The Price is Right.
That's it. Ding, 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 ding. Come on down.
I'm here. I'm down.
I love it.
I'm
Good.
on my podium. I'm ready to rock and roll.
What's up, man?
Just kicking it. Another successful week here, trying to get things done, stay productive, and yeah.
I love it. Well, I wanted to go with a game show jingle inspired because we've got a little bit of a, mystery, what's behind curtain number one topic where it's actually going to be a grab bag of different questions that we've gotten in recently from listeners and from some of our client discussions and things like that. So I just thought that would be appropriate or apropos, whichever. I don't even know if apropos is the right word. I think that's the opposite of appropriate. But
would apropos be apropos?
Maybe. Golly. All right,
we're getting way too meta here.
Back to the SAT prep course. Don't use words that you're not for sure on. So anyway, that's on me. We'll own it, and we're moving on.
We are moving on. So I'll hit on the first item that we had here on our grab bag, and it's asking kind of what are some of the biggest challenges when we're growing or expanding an FEC business or a location-based entertainment business. And one of the things that comes to mind when we talk about this is change management. There's both change management internally with your staff, and then there's the externally with your customers. So if we start with the staff side of things, when you're, let's say, expanding an existing location, renovating an existing location, or potentially you're adding an additional location, you already have one or maybe two, and you're adding a second or a third. Hiring new staff. That's one thing that immediately comes to mind as a pain point for some people, because it's not just being able to, okay, let's find good people that we can add to our team because we need more than we already had. And even if you're not expanding, hiring tends to be one of the biggest pain points in the industry. So I need to increase the total quantity of good people, not just those with a pulse, right? We need good people on our team. But there's also the concept of, okay, we are now growing our footprint. We're adding new attractions. We're potentially having a second location. Then we think about how do we maintain our level of service, our level of quality, our culture across that expansion. Because it's one thing if you've got, let's just say, 50 employees, just making this up for numbers' sake, and you're really focused on the culture side of things and making sure that the service standards are there across the board. Well, if you add a second location and now you have 90 to 100 employees across both of them, it becomes a lot more complex to make sure that the culture is kind of communicated effectively to all of these new people. The standards are set, and it kind of brings up the question of, okay, do we hire everyone all at once and then add in all those people at once, or do we slowly build over time? I was talking recently with Stephanie Moxley, who runs Pins and Wheels in Austin, Texas, formerly Skateland Play Center. They doubled in size, added a ton of attractions, and with that, they added a ton of new staff members. And through that, they've been going through some growing pains and some struggles, and like anyone who has done anything in business, have made some mistakes along the way and had some very successful things that have happened as well. But one of the things I'm excited about is she'll be one of our operator interviews at Amusement 360, where she'll talk quite a bit about some of the things that she's learned through the process of expanding and doubling the size of a business that had been in the community for so long. And then we think about, okay, there's the external customers that are going to be coming in your door. And one of the things I think is so valuable is storytelling. storytelling, especially across social media. Because a lot of times I think what can happen is people can get so focused on, let's just say there's an expansion and you're adding a couple attractions. You can get so focused on the construction and getting everything lined up and putting things into place. And there's so many, metaphorical fires that you're putting out and problem solving that you're doing, that you get to the point where you're about to open, you go, okay, now let's start marketing it. But what we've seen both in our industry and outside is if you can storytell and talk about the process of that expansion and give little teasers about what's coming and kind of bring the community into your story and have them feel like they're a part of it, by the time that you get to opening the expansion or the additional venue, whatever it is, there's a higher level of excitement among your customers and potential customers in the community that will be lining up and ready to come into your venue the moment that expansion is ready to go. So those are two big things I wanted to hit on there.
Yeah, that change management is because it also represents by extension just hidden costs of ownership of doing these things, right? Like you've got your cost for your build out, you've got your cost for what your increased staff is, but you really need to look at how do we balance this and how do we kind of account for that, so that way when we are ready to have the grand new opening with it, that we're not learning that as much on the fly, because those are more costly mistakes, not only because you have all this increased overhead, but if the guest experience is off by the time that goes live, then that hurts potentially customers coming back and what their perception is with all of it. So it also could represent lost revenue if you're not really dialed into that change management. So, all right, grab bag question number 2. I'm going to lead this one off. It's get ready for a bad Jerry Seinfeld impersonation. What's the deal with crane rooms? So crane rooms have been something that have been popping up a lot more over the last 4 months or so, I would say, especially in my discussions with different operators and kind of looking at, well, hey, what's something unique and different, and how do we try to look at this and have you seen these things and yada yada. So crane rooms as a standalone entity have been very popular throughout Asian markets, predominantly in Japan as well. Obviously, that is an Asian market, but really gets driven from that. And what we're starting to see are markets that have a heavy Asian immigration population, they are really starting to see some wonderful traction with these types of experiences, both for those populations because it's kind of familiar and known, but it's also been something that's been around a little bit for U.S. operators. So like Family Entertainment Group with some of their different locations at resorts, they've had some dedicated merchandiser crane rooms and things, which are really exciting. I think the thing that I enjoy most about what this experience is, and why I think it's got legs, is because guests can come in. You've inherently got some easy, medium, and hard cranes, so that way you've got different difficulty levels for different skill level players. But if you're a young kiddo and you're coming in and you get, 5 of the little, kind of tier 1 guys, you can actually trade those in and get a one bigger prize with that. And so it allows you to have a little bit more of leveling up experience with direct merchandisers. And so it can be a really fun experience that's got a kind of its own little mini dedicated redemption area. If it's a standalone, having just nothing but cranes in there, some cool theming, but then you've got this big, huge wall and you've got the mega-sized prizes, so that way you're inherently encouraging repeat play and return visits because they want to be able to level up the prizes and things that they're getting with it. So I've really enjoyed the concept. I think it's going to be something that continues to get a lot of traction, especially for, hey, we've got small footprint opportunities that we can go into this strip mall. It's in a really high, it's in a mall, let's say in a concourse. It's a great one because staffing overhead is relatively lower. You're not having a ton of different things, but it's got a lot of visual draw and eye candy and instant gratification that comes with the experience by doing it. So definitely something that I like quite a bit, just because I think it can speak to any age range, a variety of difficulty levels. It's something that's familiar, but when presented in this kind of more standalone or dedicated area, can have a little bit more pomp and circumstance that comes with it and a little bit more curb appeal.
So next grab bag question, what are the top areas to look at improving the guest experience? we could go in 100 different directions with this,
yes,
because
6
that's
episodes
so much,
later.
yeah, we're going to hit on just a couple very specific ones, because I mean, we could have an entire year of podcast episodes only about that. And so much of what we talk about is about improving that experience. But I want to hit on a couple specific items here. And some of these were inspired, actually, and I'll give a shout out to Sherry Howell at Center Edge Software. She published a blog post recently that we'll link to in the show notes here. And on the blog post ourselves, where we have the podcast called 7 Ways to Improve Your FEC Guest's Journey. And there's some really interesting notes in there. We won't cover every single one from that blog post, but a couple pieces that we took away. Number one is, can your guests buy from their phone before they even show up? I think it can be very easy to think about, well, my point of sale is the moment they walk in the center and they come to my front counter. That is my point of sale. And that is your physical, literal point of sale. But there's this giant opportunity online through whatever software. You might use Center Edge software. You might use one of the many others that are in our industry. There's a lot of really great ones out there. That's not as important as being able to offer the ability for people to purchase online before they show up, to be able to reserve if you got a trampoline park, a jump time, or if you've got laser tag, to be able to reserve a game, or if you're doing bowling, reserve a lane and pre-order some food, things like that. We think about how easy it is for any of us to open up the Amazon app on our phone and boop, 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 we buy something. So simple. We're so accustomed to being able to purchase things through our phone. Giving guests the ability to do this for your business can be very important and helpful. Not only will it increase the amount of revenue that you can capture, but it's also about kind of that instant gratification for them, but it helps you plan staffing as well. Because if you've got a lot of advanced bookings for your bowling center or trampoline park with your jump times or whatever it might be that you can see in advance, it helps you understand what your staffing levels should be on any given day or any given time of day a little bit better than just guessing based upon historically, or this month we've kind of done about this amount, so that's how I'm going to staff. It allows you to get a little bit more specific and give that excitement to the guest before they ever even walk in your door. Now, another key area, food and beverage, and we'll hit on this again toward the end of the episode here, but being able to expand the food and beverage portion is really important. Staff consistently engaging with guests is also extremely important. We think about a term, random acts of kindness. What if you made that not random and you made it intentional acts of kindness? What if every day or multiple times a day you had little gift cards or giveaways that you handed to your team members, and their job was to go find someone to give that to, just as a surprise out of nowhere? Here's a little piece. The kind of special moments that you can create with guests by doing that, and a gift card and a small giveaway, it doesn't cost that much, but the memory that's made and the amount of kind of brand equity that you'll build with that customer by just simply giving something as a surprise away for free out of nowhere goes a long way. And one of the things that, as the joke goes, hey, Russ, did you know I worked at Disney World? When I worked there, and for those of you who are new listeners, that's a joke that we make all the time because I talk about Disney because I worked there, and Russ is like, oh, no way, you worked there. Wow, surprise. But Disney called these magical moments. And there were sometimes, if you clocked into a shift, because every attraction that you would work at, there were specific kind of roles that you would rotate through. And depending on the time that you clocked in and how many people were already clocked in and who's at what position, you might get kind of a 15-minute schedule of, you're not in a position, but you're just going around making magical moments. You're doing something for a guest that has nothing to do with running the attraction. It's simply to make a memory and help them smile and have a good time. And if you think about the ways that you can take that concept in small ways in your own operations to just simply make those magical moments, make someone smile, surprise. It can go a long way toward how they feel about your business and your brand, and how often they're going to return, and how often they're going to tell their friends about that experience.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? So, one, you had mentioned a little bit about a food and beverage piece and being able, I'll expand on that briefly because we'll talk about it later as well. But being able to order your food through a mobile app or online ordering is a huge thing. Two things on this. One, last night, literally, there's a restaurant. It's about 25 minutes away. We ordered dinner online. I went and drove to pick it up. I was there a little bit early. But it was so nice just because, hey, by the time that's going to be ready, I'll get there, by 25 minutes later, all of that good stuff. And it was a little bit behind, but the bartender, Peyton, gave me I ordered a beer because I was like, oh, I'll just wait a little bit. Like, that's okay. They're a little stacked. And then he brought my food out and he's like, don't worry about the beer. It's on me. Thank you for, ordering kind of a bit. So just their team was empowered of, hey, this is a high touch point that we want to be able to do and encourage the type of behavior that we want to see, where they want to see more online orders and things like that too. And yeah, that stuff just goes such a long way because now I have a more emotional tie to Grains and Grill. I feel like Peyton's my guy, and when I come back in there, like, not that I'll expect a free beer every time, but he was just looking out for me, and I felt seen and appreciated, and so it was really nice. Another kind of, we'll switch over to our next question. Big grab bag question is, how do we drive more traffic to our location? And we've talked about this in a variety of different ways. And one thing that I will remind folks to, really stay focused on is, what are you doing with the Chamber of Commerce, philanthropic type events and fundraisers for your local schools? Like, how are you engaging and being seen out in the community as someone who's giving back to it? Because then you can drive that business in, you can give back all at the same time to be able to do that. And so, the other nice thing, and for those of you who haven't watched the Kevin Lockery episode where we talk about earned media, this is a great way to get local news outlet exposure. But not only will you get that news coverage exposure for something that you're doing because it's the right thing to do and you want to be a part of your community, the people that are part of those events, if you're doing a first responders appreciation night and giving free pizza, to first responders and their families, let's say after a natural disaster or something like that comes through, the people that are there are going to come back to your facility again in a non, philanthropic event type of an engagement. And so you'll have referrals, but actively participating in the Chamber of Commerce, not only helps you get more business traffic, but anybody who's coming there for those types of events, they have other needs and wants for just their own thing with their own family outside of those groups that they will come back again more and more. So that is such a critical part to just being seen as part of a contributing part of the community. And then the second and third degree referrals that you get from that and repeat drive is massive. I think the other thing that I would go back and really highlight on, especially as we're trying to, really keep our guests sticky to us and be front of mind with them, are, if you've been flirting with the idea of a loyalty or a membership program, please, please, please consider it. There are so many benefits to being able to do this, whether it's having a better line of communication with your core customers that are regularly coming in there to begin with. But again, giving them things that are unique to the members, special incentives. It helps you drive traffic to non-peak times. It helps, not passively, helps you stay on their radar in a non-pestering way, because they've seen value and different things that go along with that. So definitely love what I'm continuing to see with the growth of the loyalty programs, as well as a way to just drive more traffic. So community involvement and loyalty programs are two really solid ways to continue to do that, as well as Danny, you mentioned this at the beginning, of just storytelling. Like, what fun things are you putting out there? What messaging and who are you targeting that messaging to on whether it's your email platform, your text list, your social media, like whatever it is, curating different stories to highlight the fun that you do. Because again, that FOMO and everything else is a big part of that as well.
Final grab bag question. We talked about we're going to come back to food and beverage, and this is it. What attractions should I look at to drive more food and beverage sales? Now, I was having a conversation last week with Mario Valadez, who's the owner of Conroe's Incredible Pizza in Conroe, Texas.
Shout out,
And
Mario.
we were having this conversation that his facility is kind of the opposite of most FECs, where his facility is a restaurant first, and when people come in for the food, they stay for the attractions. But on the flip side, where we're at now, and what we're going to be talking about in this moment is that most FECs are attractions first. They bring in people, and the attractions are what drive traffic. But then once they're in there, based upon how long you can create that dwell time, and the kinds of experiences and attractions that you have, allow you to enhance that experience by adding food and beverage on top of that. And so, Russ, I want to throw this over to you to hit on a couple of examples of what are the common things right now that are trending as really good ways to increase food and beverage sales based upon the kinds of experiences people are putting in their venues.
Mm-hmm. So I would first give, my 30,000 foot view on this would be, does the attraction inherently require that small core group to stay together and socially compete while they're doing that experience? Because if it's something where everybody's kind of going off and doing their own thing and yada yada, like it's real easy for everybody to get things off of their list, and their dwell time goes down and all of that. And then if their dwell time is down, they're not staying as long, they're not going to get thirsty for that, second beer or what have you, or they maybe only order a lesser amount of food. And so I really have been encouraging folks of, does the attraction inherently have social competition for a small group built into it, so that way they can chat and engage and socialize, lose track of time a little bit while they're having fun together, but the attraction itself has to facilitate that group kind of staying together and trash talking a little bit and doing it, because that's what's going to increase the proper dwell time, where they want to keep the good times rolling together because they're at such a peak emotional state when they do that. And so, a couple of the different attractions that really come to mind, obviously some of the more digital, like darts and shuffleboard. So you've got groups like 501 Fun that have really killer attractions for both of those types of concepts. You've got crazy darts, you've got axe throwing, you've got some of those sit, eat, play, kind of cyclical elements. Mini golf and duck pin bowling are other great examples that come to mind with this, because again, we're in our small group and we have our little flow that we do. And so the other piece that I would look at for driving more food and beverage sales, we talked about it a little bit earlier in the episode, is, do they have the ability to scan a QR code or order online through your app while they're there at the facility? And extra bonus points if you can, know where they are and you can bring that out to them, or you have a designated mobile food order pickup spot where then they can, send somebody to go bring some of that stuff over. So again, looking at, hey, we're over here, I want to be able to order another beverage or some more appetizers, like have some wait staff that moves through that space to be able to take orders, so that way you can move through that, or even better, have a mobile, food ordering application that you can do within your center, because then it just removes the friction points throughout that process. It allows them to stay engaged with the reason that they're there, which is to socialize and compete. So in my mind, that's really a big piece. The last thing that I would say, and this is a little bit of like, how do we drive more traffic, or how do we drive more food and beverage? This is kind of a one for both of those, where I really love this idea of a social competition bundle, or, for small individual groups to do, or do like an Olympic Games bundle if you're doing large corporate events, where, hey, if I'm doing a social competition bundle, it's going to be almost everything that I've got in my facility that you're going to do. So it's going to be your premium top tier package, but you're going to, let's say it's a group of 4, right? And they come in, we're going to do duck pin bowling, we're going to do darts, we're going to do mini golf, and we want some food and beverage that comes along with that. And so you can bundle all of that together, and then what you'll do is each individual member will keep track of what their scores are throughout those sub experiences that they're doing as far as their overall visit. And the winner of that gets a unique piece of swag or a bounce back or, of any kind of incentive. So that way, they get the crown, right? And what's that kind of bragging rights piece that they get that also drives them back into the facility again for another visit. The larger scale version of that was I have some friends on the north side of Indianapolis that are involved in one of the Elks Lodges. And one of our clients where we did a laser tag arena does an annual event with them where they do this big Olympic piece where all of these different folks sign up. It's a big philanthropic fundraiser. So this is like full turducken of everything that we've been talking about today, where it's a fundraiser for community service and philanthropy that they're doing in a variety of different ways through the Elks Lodges. But like the groups of 4 will compete. And so like we went and did, hey, our group had the second highest score in laser tag. We had the third highest score in bowling. We had the highest score on the punch machine, things like that, where now you can take the kind of average weighted scores across all of those attractions, and that group then gets a special recognition or a prize. It's some sort of incentive that comes along with it. And so that, in my mind, is a really fun experience. You can scale it down to individual, family groups that are coming in so they can compete amongst themselves. You can do it for your big community involvement events and fundraising and things as well. So it's got a lot of meat on the bone and versatility in where and how you can use something like that, which I absolutely love. So I think if you're looking for like a social competition or Olympic bundle, it's a great way to drive more like, hey, they're going to be doing everything while they're here, and they get a little bit of that unique recognition and bragging rights, and it just fits across the board with all of that.
If for those who are listening to this episode, and if you like this kind of wide variety of topics and you're looking for ways to learn across the board in your business, whether you're opening your very first venue or you're expanding to your third location or whatever the case may be, I want to shout out to Amusement 360. When this gets released, the upcoming event will be 2 weeks away. Tickets are going very, very, very fast. We highly recommend this event. I mean, we're a little bit biased on it, but we have in the last 4 or 5 years, we've polled our attendees and surveyed them, and 100% of attendees said they would recommend this event to an industry friend or colleague. Yeah. So I think that speaks volumes about the event. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, please check it out, amusement360.com. And then, looking through this episode that we just talked about is going through the change management internally and externally, looking at something new and unique with crane rooms. What are the ways we can improve the guest experience? How can we drive more traffic to the site? And how can we boost food and beverage sales? And Russ, that to me seems like a great place to wrap up today's episode.
I would agree. We've got more awesome content coming your guys' way through the weekly episodes, so be sure to come back and catch what's on the next one.
If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.
And we always appreciate that 5 stars, please and thank you. Hopefully the bloopers at the end of each of our episodes that Danny and I do together help get us to that 5th star.
Yeah, a little bit of a teaser. If you didn't know, if you stay till after the closing song, there are almost always some bloopers about us going through prep work and things like that. So a little fun Easter egg for you. If you've got any ideas for future episodes, whether it's a topic or a guest, follow us on social media and send us a DM.
And as always, big shout out to Mikey Mike working the Ultranet and the 1s and 2s for us. And thank you all for joining us. And we'll see you on the next one, Troublemakers.
You said, how's it going? And in my mind, I was like, I'm good. My mind
Sorry, dude.
I was so focused on the topic at hand that when you said, how's it going? I'm like, topics.
That's on me. What's the? I just had like.
What's the deal? What?
Yeah, I know. I totally had Jerry Seinfeld in my head.
Well, then I'm ready to rock if you are.
Sweet, let's do this.